Hey guys, welcome to the sessions. Have an awesome episode coming up in just a second with Rocky Romero. He is a top-notch human being. He has worked in many different wrestling promotions. We got down to the brass tacks on all of it. But before that, I want to tell you guys about NetSuite. So 2000, 2008, 2022, when it comes to the economy, those are some pretty scary years. There's a dot-com crash, housing crash, and of course the roller coaster that we're going through right now. One thing is certain, though, that it's a pretty dangerous time to not know your numbers. But over 31,000 businesses have the confidence and clarity that they need because they rely on NetSuite by Oracle, the #1 cloud financial system. So NetSuite gives you visibility and control of your financials, inventory, HR, planning, and budgeting so that you can manage risk, get reliable forecasts, and improve margins. Everything that you need all in one place. So how do you prepare for uncertain times? The answer is NetSuite. NetSuite helps you identify rising costs, automate your business processes, and easily see where you can save some money. That's why 93% of customers say that they improved their visibility and control when they upgraded to NetSuite. So, what are you waiting for? Right now, NetSuite is offering a one-of-a-kind flexible financing program. Head over to netsuite.com/sessions. That's netsuite.com/sessions. Get in on it. Don't miss out. All right, guys, let's get into the interview. This is Rocky Romero. Rocky Romero here on the sessions. Are you ready for a spicy interview?
Spicy? Nobody told me anything about spice.
It's always spicy around here. Are you kidding me?
Okay.
So
I'm in.
What's the Sasha Banks tea?
Why did I know that was gonna come up? I thought we might get a little warmed up before we get right to it.
No, I'm going to warm you up. I mean, just know that question's coming, so prepare your answer however you want. The question's coming your way, though.
Okay, I'll have to think about that.
How are you doing? What's going on? Are you in Mexico? Are you back from Mexico?
I am currently home in Los Angeles. I am back from Mexico. I got back earlier this week, and I had a great trip. I won a tournament. I got this cool cup. I should probably have put it in my background, but I didn't.
Well, you blurred your background anyway, so we wouldn't be able to see it.
Yeah.
That's smart.
I didn't really like my background today. I got to fix up my podcasting space a bit.
Do you want me to send you a fake plant? That's all the rage.
Yeah. Is that thing fake?
Oh, God, yeah.
Smart.
I can't keep a plant alive for the life of me. Can you keep plants alive?
My wife is exceptionally good at it. Oh. She didn't start out that way, but now she's got a green thumb.
See, I think that I can get there. And John poo-poos me every time I bring a plant home. If he were at the grocery store and picking one up, he's like, he starts talking like he's the plant. Like, oh, buddy, I'm so sorry. I'm like, listen, I have to get good at it. I know that I'm going to take some L's along the way.
For sure.
But
some plants are going to die, unfortunately. Yeah, on the way.
Someone needs to be sacrificed.
It's like goldfish, you know? Those, they used to get those goldfish at the fair or whatever. Yeah. And they're going to go through, or turtle. You're going to go through a few of them, unfortunately, but then you're going to get really good at taking care of pets, you know?
Yeah. So. It's like any kid that loses a hamster that all of a sudden is in the walls of your house. It happens to everybody. A lizard, a snake.
It totally happens. Yes.
Have you ever lost a pet?
No, but I definitely lost I had a hamster. His name was Corky. He was my best friend as a kid, and then that was my first. Man, we're getting deep. It was my first loss of a pet. You know, it was so sad. Little guy, he went in my arms. It was so sad. Gosh. Yeah,
you know
I learned about death though through that. Yeah,
I don't know did kids still get pet hamsters, or was that a thing for kids of the 80s? Because I had a hamster named Ralph. I loved this guy. Me and my best friend, we set up a fake wedding, a real wedding for our hamsters. They then fornicate. They make baby hamsters. Wow. And I also learned about lost through my hamsters because I didn't know at the ripe age that I was of, maybe 9, that if you touch baby hamsters when they're first born, the mom eats them and it's fucked. I walked in on the mom eating the baby hamsters.
Oh, no.
I'm really just nailing this interview right off the
yeah. Poor people are so sad and depressed listening to this interview.
Happy holiday,
sorry, everybody. Yeah. We're just kidding. Anyway.
Oh my God. That was just a dream I had that didn't actually happen.
Yeah. Of course, of course.
Anyway, shout out to
Anyway, should we
hamsters.
talk about something? Yeah, let's talk about something happy. I mean, I have two beautiful little one's a Shih Tzu and one's a poodle. They're the joys of my life.
I've heard
One,
about these dogs. I've
yeah,
heard about like the love you have for these dogs. How
I
old are
do.
they?
Duke is I think he's 6 now, and then
Mhm.
Honey is 3.
Duke and Honey.
Duke
Oh
and
my
Honey.
gosh. Dogs are just the best. What angels on earth. They really are.
We
Do
don't deserve them.
do you ever travel with your dogs?
A little bit, not really. My wife wants to take them everywhere, but
Hmm.
it's kind of hard, to
Yeah.
take
No, it's
them.
rough. Pun
Yeah.
intended. Pun intended.
Right.
Um,
And my dogs are bougie as hell, so like
you have LA dogs. Do you keep them in those like fancy
100%.
like LA Hollywood dog motels or hotels or
Of
whatever?
course, that's where we picked them up. We picked them from this bougie rescue place.
Yeah.
Shout out to Wagmore, and but yeah, they were on Ellen. Like they've totally gotten so like
Wait, your
Hollywood
dogs
now.
were on Ellen?
My dogs are not on Ellen, but the place that we
Okay.
got our dogs
Okay.
from were on Ellen, and then they
Okay.
just blew up, and like all the celebrities get their dogs there.
Oh,
But we were there
I follow
first.
that place on Instagram. They've got
Oh, do you?
really, yeah, I do.
They have
They've got
cute
really
rescues.
sweet pups. They
They do.
do.
They do.
Oh, little shaggy little guys. That's sweet. You've mentioned your wife a few times already, and I was going to save it for later, but we're already talking about just personal things before we get into all the wrestling. What's like the love story between you and your wife? How'd you guys meet?
So we actually met in acting class.
Oh,
Yeah, it's very Hollywood too, but
that
I'm
I
in
know.
LA.
Look at you.
I know, I'm so LA. But yeah, so she was trying to navigate the acting space, and I wanted to become a better professional wrestler, so I started taking acting classes, and that's where we met. And about a year in, we started to pay attention to each other, and then I asked her out on Facebook Messenger.
Oh, mm,
We went out on a
mm.
date, and then she couldn't get rid of me.
What was the first date? Where'd you guys go?
We went to just like a little bar, a little restaurant down the street from her place, and yeah, we hung out the whole night till like 3 or 4 a.m., and then I finally went home, and then she says that I never left her apartment, but I'm I had to go home at some point. So
Left eventually.
eventually, yeah.
How long have you guys been together?
So we've been together almost 10 years now.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. That's
Mhm.
almost like same as John and I. Yeah, we're coming up on, we'll be 10 years this coming year. Gosh, a
Nice.
decade with a person. Holy
I
moly.
know.
I
It's
know all the
crazy.
secrets, all the little
Everything.
crevices, all
All the
all of it.
skeletons. Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned taking acting classes to become a better professional wrestler.
Yes.
You have really become that guy, obviously for New Japan, but I think for multiple promotions to be able to kind of groom some younger talent coming in to get them to where they need to be. Is that something that you often recommend to people, is to tap into the acting side of things?
Yeah, yeah. It kind of became like, so now when I do like seminars and stuff, like I'm totally like taking stuff that I learned from acting and applying it to like professional wrestling,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of like good little nuggets that the style of acting that I studied, which is kind of like not, it's perfect for me because I'm so bad at this. So it's like not preparing is your preparation, and just kind of going
Great.
off the feel. I think
Yeah,
like
yeah.
John would like this, I feel like. But
Right.
like you just kind of going in there and just like kind of feeling. So like I try to, tell the younger generation that, even though I didn't do this when I was young, I just learned it later in life, but like,
Mhm.
to leave a little space to just find out what
Yeah.
happens and just
Yeah.
figure it out. So like that's like the best tool that I think I have, because I found all of the greatest like points of my character or points of my wrestling have always been in discovery mode, and not like
Yes.
sitting back and thinking about it for hours and
Mhm.
hours, driving yourself crazy.
Now, is that a thing that you think, you've been doing this for some time now? So you've been in a bunch of different scenarios to learn to kind of sit back and wait for it. It takes a long time, I think, to have the confidence to
And the
learn to sit
trust.
back. Yeah, to
Yeah,
trust yourself that you're going to come up with something. I feel like, yeah, if you're young, it's really hard to know to just like let the moment happen, it seems.
for sure, for sure. And so like when I am teaching, that's what I try to focus on, and I say,
Mhm.
like just try it, you know, there's no wrong or right answers because in wrestling there really isn't, right? So
Yeah.
it's like go ahead and just try it and see what happens. See what kind of story you just kind of naturally make. See what your opponent gives you, and every time your opponent gives you something, that's like a gift, you know. So you choose to
100%.
receive
Yeah.
that gift.
Mhm.
You know, choose to
Just
receive
like
the
rules of
gift.
improv. Take it. The
Exactly,
yes,
and take
yes,
it.
and it.
Yep,
Just yes,
yep.
and it. Well, I think it's also like it's helpful to have those acting classes for obviously like not only in the ring, waiting for those moments, learning how to sell, all those different things, and of course for a promo to be able to kind of learn those moments and make certain lines feel important and whatnot. I feel like we should do more of that. I know at WWE we did have an acting coach following us around on the road with us for a while, and
Oh
some
wow.
people really hated it. They hated that there was an acting coach around. I think it's a really smart idea. Why not? People are very resistant towards that.
Yeah. I could see, I guess I could see why if you're kind of like a traditionalist, maybe, you know, or
Sure.
like you're so method in the way that you're already doing things and it's worked for you, how you could be
Sure.
scared to try that, you know. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
but I think you should give it a go either way, you know, and then, you know, try to figure out if you can just X that off the list, or,
Sure.
you
Sure.
know, maybe you want to dive deeper, as they
Get
say.
deep into it, take a little
Get deep
lean
into it.
into it, a deep
Ex-
dive. Okay, so when you first got into professional wrestling, you were what, 15, wrestling under a mask? And is
Yeah.
this true that you were wrestling with the little people? Are we saying little people? Is
Yeah, I
that
think we
the
could say
PC
that.
term? Okay.
Yeah.
What is the
Yeah.
story behind this?
Oh God, who have you've been talking to Emilio, haven't you? Yeah, so you know, yeah, I was like 15, so they didn't really want to put me with the adults. So there was another kid that was about 15 years old, 16 years old. So we just wrestled each other, and they had him under a gimmick called El Payasito Dinko, which is like Dink, but like the clown
Yeah.
Dink, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like a very like warped lucha version of it.
Okay.
So so they decided to put me under their mask and called El Mono Negro, which
Okay.
means the black monkey. So I was a monkey. I was a little monkey guy, and then
Cute.
I would fight the clown.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
that's as carny as it gets right
It's
there.
very carny. I started out very carny, still am. I don't know.
Great. That's
Renee, help
fantastic.
me, please. Get me
Um,
out of this business. I'm ready to go do
you're
something
in
else.
it. You're in it. Just
Finance.
ride it out. Ride it
All
out. It's
right,
going well
fine.
for you. It's good. What was it like being under a mask? I sometimes feel for wrestlers that are under a mask because I feel like that's got to be rough sometimes.
Yeah, in the beginning, it's very different. Obviously, and you know, you losing like your depth perception, and you
Yeah.
know, you kind of learn to work around it, hopefully.
Mhm. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I never really liked wrestling in a mask. I got comfortable with it later, later in my career when I started doing became Black Tiger. Then
Yeah.
I got very comfortable with it.
Yeah.
But it's not something that I really enjoy. I mean, what? Look at how handsome this
Look
face
at
is.
this face. Why would we
You know,
cover it up? Oh my
why would we
God.
cover this?
I
You
mean, if
know,
you're young and we're trying to sneak you onto the card, I get it.
right?
Yeah, let's let the
Exactly.
face let's get
Of
that face
course.
out there.
Yeah.
So you're 15, you're in the world of professional wrestling, traveling the world as like a kid. What was like that experience like? Did you have to grow up really fast?
I think so. Did
Yeah.
I ever really grow up? I don't really know. But yeah, no, I definitely grew up fast and just kind of got thrown into it. And I don't know, it was very overwhelming. You know, everything was happening so fast. You know, obviously, like my first trip to Japan was, I think I was like 19 years old, about to turn
Yeah.
20. And, you know, my debut match was like in the Tokyo Dome in front of like
Crazy.
50,000 people. So as you can imagine, I tell this story often, but it's like they told us right before, you know, not to look up because you're going to see the crowd, you might freak yourself out. So
Mhm.
walking down the ramp, the first thing I could do was like you just see this sea of people, and I looked up, and I looked all around, and I definitely was like, oh my God, what am I doing here? Why am I here? Like, whose idea was this? So, but yeah, no, I definitely got to grow up fast and have a bunch of really cool experiences as a young man, and I think they've
It's
helped
gone
me.
it's
Yeah,
gone well.
I think it's okay. Yeah.
What What was like your parents' reaction to this of like sending their boy into the world and keeping tabs on you? And at this time, it's not like, what was the cell phone situation then? Were we on cell phones?
No. Yeah,
No.
we
Did
had
we?
like, yeah, we had like we had a big phone,
Like you were just
kind.
like you were playing Snake on your phone. That was the kind of
Yes.
phone that you had. Yeah.
Yes, we
Yeah.
definitely had a Nokia playing Snake on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that, but when I was going international, you had to get calling cards
Yes.
still.
Right.
So you would get the calling card and then like dial the number. Kids don't know anything about this. You had
No,
to dial a
no
number.
one knows what we're talking about anymore unless
No,
they were born past like 1980 or something.
yeah. Then you had to put a pin in, and then you had to hope that somebody picked up on the other line, and who or somebody was home.
Did you have a rule of like you have to check in at this time? You've got to call your family. Like, did you guys have any kind of a system set into place?
No, they just said, call, and there was email too, right? So like,
Right.
it was like more emails. So like even that, like you would have to go to
Like an
like
internet cafe.
exactly an internet
Yes.
cafe,
Yes.
pay for like whatever $4 or $5 an hour, and then you could, surf the net and send emails. So I often sent emails, and then I tried to call like every few days or so.
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. It's funny when I think about that now, like as a parent, when I think of like me moving from Canada to Los Angeles when I was like 19, and I felt like I was an adult at the time, but now actually being an adult, I'm like, oh my God, I was a child. How did my
100%.
mother let me do that? How
Yeah.
irresponsible. What could have happened? Oh my
No,
God.
I think my parents felt very strong. Like they were so happy for me, and they could see that I actually, I wasn't very good in school or anything. I didn't apply myself very much to school. So
Yeah.
I think they were happy that, I was going and doing something positive,
Yeah.
and I was like into it as a career and not just for like a hobby or anything. So
Hmm.
I think they were very behind it. Obviously, when I started, getting these offers to go different places, they were of course worried, but they also were like, you know, go do it, like this is cool. And, no one in our family has ever been to Japan. Go to Japan. That sounds
Yeah.
really cool,
Did you
So
ever have a moment as like being a kid, being around a ton of adults going, oh, I'm a little in over my head right now? Were you like, because you must have seen some shit that you were like,
right. Definitely nothing that like, man, I've probably blocked it out after all these years, but yeah, like yeah, I'm sure there was definitely those kind of situations. And I don't know. I don't know. The goal was so important that to
Yeah.
wrestle and try to do this as a living,
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
that I feel like all that was always like more important than anything else, anything that was around adults. The only time I feel like it really felt like that was like definitely in the ring. Like you're against somebody like Jushin Liger, who's a
Sure.
legend, and you start questioning everything. Like,
Yeah.
I do not
Yeah.
belong here at all. I do not belong here. And then you forget everything. Your mind just goes blank. Like I couldn't even tell you about the first year in Japan that I wrestled, because I feel like I was just always so nervous. It's all just like
Sure. You couldn't soak it
a
in
blur.
proper.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, not at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I remember when I was in LA and I couldn't work. I didn't have a work visa. I had nothing. I didn't even have any work experience, but I was like, I'm off to Hollywood. I had no money. I made $50 a night under the table at this like one bar that I was working at. My car would break down on me all the time, but my roommate was friends with Paul Allen, who was like created Microsoft with Bill Gates, owned like the biggest
Wow.
yacht in the world. I'm at this man's house. I don't have like fucking $20 in my bank account. And he had like a tram in his house to go down to his guest house where he had a band that lived in this guest house that he just like woke up to like play music for everybody. And that was a moment for me where I go, what the fuck am I doing here? I don't have any money. I don't belong with this circle of people. Like, why am I here? It was like such a weird eye-opening moment that made me just feel like a kid that was like, what the fuck am I doing
In
in
over
this
your head.
moment?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just in over my head with people that I should not have been like. And he's a lovely man. He was very nice, but I was like, just not where I should have been at the time because I was a kid and I needed to get my shit together. But
For sure.
anyways, okay, so your time at New Japan, why was New Japan the place that you have really gravitated towards to like really call home?
It's the only place that would employ me.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. No, no. So I would say, so yeah, I started at like 15. Then I think around like that time, really started to like get into Japanese professional wrestling, and I really like, I was a fan of the cruiserweight division in WCW. That
Hmm.
was a big effect on me. Obviously, like I'm a smaller guy, so
Who were your
that's
guys? Who were you watching that you loved?
Ray and Eddie, of
Yeah,
course.
of
Ray and
course.
Eddie, but like Hoovy, Psychosis. I mean, they were all just these crazy, amazing athletes. Jericho as well. Um, I just thought that they were, I'd never seen anything like that, and obviously, like there also became personalities as well. In the beginning, it
Hmm.
was just
Yeah,
about the matches, but then they started to really become personalities, especially like with Jericho
yeah.
and Guerrero. Um, so yeah, I started to really get into them. I was like, oh, this seems feasible. Like I could make a living doing that, like trying to become a cruiserweight. So then I started to like get into ECW, and I was like, oh, that really seems like that's possible. I could totally fit into here.
Yeah,
So that was always the dream. I was like, I could just make it to ECW, and maybe I could become, get a WCW cruiserweight contract, and
yeah.
then I'm made. But then with that, discovering, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Liger, like I said, and some of the other Japanese wrestlers that would come over to WCW. And so I started doing a deep dive into that. I found like the J Cup series, which is like
Ah,
so iconic. And then I was like, oh, I really want to wrestle in Japan, because this is where everybody kind of like, if you're good, that's where you go, and then
mhm.
your career kind of like blossoms from there, hopefully.
Yeah.
So that was always the goal, was to get to Japan. But then once I got there, I realized how hard it was to actually stay there. So the first year, I went, and then I didn't go back for like another like year and a half or something like that, 2 years. They were basically like, oh, go get more experience, you're not ready for this yet.
Is that why it's kind of hard to stay there?
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. At least for me, in my experience.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
so they sent me to Mexico. I went and worked for CMLL in 2003. And then I got a really great opportunity there, became like the first ever CMLL Super Ligero champion.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I sure did. And then had like this really like a series of like really cool iconic matches in Mexico. And then I started to feel like, okay, maybe I'm ready for like this next level,
Mhm.
going back to New Japan. So then I got an opportunity to go back, did very well there. And then they said, okay, you are ready. Let's make you Black Tiger.
Mhm.
And I
What
become Black Tiger.
so when they give you that offer to become Black Tiger, what is going through your mind? What an opportunity.
I thought they were joking. I really did. So they told me like, oh, because Black Tiger is like, if you don't know, is like this iconic, legendary character. So there's Tiger Mask, which is the good guy, and his arch nemesis Venom. Spider-Man and Venom is Black
Yep.
Tiger. So Mark Rollerball Rocco, iconic, wrestler from the UK. Then Eddie Guerrero, who's my hero, became Black Tiger. Then Silver King, and then I'm the fourth generation. So
Wow.
yeah, so really cool, you know,
Hell
like
of a feather in your cap.
yeah, awesome. It's very cool. So when they told me, I was like, are you serious? Like, me, Rocky, me? They're like, yes, no, we want you to be. So I guess like Tiger Mask 4, which is the guy who I worked with, who's the fourth generation of his like master wrestler. So
Mhm.
he wanted me to become Black Tiger. So that's kind of a cool compliment.
That's
So
awesome.
obviously I got to work with him, and that was, really great experience.
That's nuts. Yeah, very, very cool. It's cool, like the lineage and everything that goes into it in the history to just like give that like pat on the back and like what an honorary thing to be able to do and be a part of. So you're in New Japan, crushing it, wrestling, doing X, Y, and Z. When did it start to filter in for you to sort of become like office for New Japan and start recruiting and start like, getting talent ready?
Right, right. So like kind of around this time, we had an LA dojo. It was
Yeah.
back in Santa Monica. This is like 2000, between 2002 and 2005 ish.
Iconic. Iconic.
Yeah, yeah, right. Danielson was there, Samoa Joe, myself. I'm missing a bunch of other people: Karl Anderson, Alex Kozlov, Prince Devitt, aka Finn Balor. So yeah, a lot of great talent came from there.
Yeah.
And I think during then, like I just kind of ended up in a kind of a leadership-ish role, kind of
I think
there.
that's just you in general. Have you always been like that? You're like that leader guy. You give off that vibe.
Maybe, maybe. I don't see it, but I guess somehow I always find myself in these predicaments where
That's
like
funny.
you tell these
Yeah.
people what to do, kind
Yeah.
of. And I'm just like, guys, don't get mad at me, but like, here's the situation. But yeah, so I just kind of started getting like kind of a leadership role and kind of communicating between the, New Japan heads at the LA dojo and then with the wrestlers and kind of being the intermediary between them. And somehow, much later, that experience was kind of the stepping stone, I think,
Yeah.
to 10 years later, 15 years later, whatever it was, 12 years later, that so when Tiger Hattori was stepping down in his position, who was this guy who scouted talent, who went agent and deals and stuff between wrestlers in New Japan and found every person who's gone through the New Japan doors, probably from the 80s and 90s and early
Yeah.
2000s, it was Tiger Hattori. So he kind of like mentored me
Mhm.
and suggested that when he was ready to step down, that I should take his place. So that's kind of how it happened. If I basically owe my whole career to him. Yeah.
How was it to balance between being in-ring talent to also having that like managerial position?
Mm, well, it's kind of a hard pill to swallow in the beginning, I found, because I was obviously still young in my 30s and still, felt like there was still a lot I wanted to accomplish and do, but then you're kind of like, I can't, do both. You can't really
Yeah.
do both. It's well, you can, but it's very difficult. You really got to take the ego out of it. So I
Mhm.
kind of had to learn that, I think probably the first year, and just be like, okay, just focus on everybody else. And then in time when the company needs you or there's an opportunity, say, raise your hand and say, hey, I'd do it, if you guys want me to. So
What
I
was
can
that for you?
um the moment that I said, hey,
Yeah, to put me in.
put me in.
Yeah.
Probably like 2019. I did the Super Junior, and I hadn't been in it for a few years, and it was kind of the focus was I kind of became a manager for like about a year and a half. Where like
Mhm.
I was a wrestling manager, so like I was in like the six mans. I just get beaten, take the pins,
Yeah.
and but then the focus was on Roppongi 3K, which is Show and Yo, and like I came up with the ideas of how to package them and everything like that. So I really took a step back. I even like got myself terrible gear to make them look better. And that's how I was thinking about this. It was yeah. So yeah, not the best looks for me during that time. But then yeah, 2019, I was like, okay, I would love to try to do another Super Junior and like give it a go while I still can, because the older I get, obviously, and then plus like as the younger generation comes up, we obviously gotta give them the opportunities more
Sure.
than I did. I've already done them, right? So yeah, then I think I had my best performance, probably ever in a Super Junior, and had like a match of the year candidate with El Phantasmo,
Mhm.
and yeah, I think that was like, so now I would love to
The
do a Super
Canadian
Junior.
King, El
The
Phantasmo.
Canadian King, yeah, you're familiar.
I
So
am.
I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, okay, 2019 was definitely my best year in the Super Junior. So maybe that's just it. Maybe I'm just done with doing those anymore. Maybe that's it, and just kind of let the next generation do. Because like I don't think I'm gonna do any better than I did in 2019. So let's just go out on top.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. I mean, there's part of me that's like, hell no, go out and keep doing it and keep going. But I know when you feel like you've really like put the cherry on top and you feel really proud of that performance, it's kind of you just want to like, okay, step
Right.
away. Great, great, great. Okay, so the relationship with New Japan and AEW, I know that was a whole thing, kind of going back and forth, figuring out what this whole Forbidden Door is. Obviously, you would have been a pretty heavy hand in what those conversations were like. What was that experience? And also just bringing you into to now work with best friends.
Well, the relationship between New Japan and AEW was kind of started off a little rocky, obviously like the Elite being a part of New Japan, and then obviously this new company starting, and like what that was going to look like was kind of, strange because there obviously were like, especially Kenny was a contracted wrestler. And here he was saying like he was leaving to start a new company. So it was like, it didn't start off the best. And
Mhm.
definitely the president at the time was, was kind of opposed of working with AEW in the beginning. So definitely like people like Jericho, Moxley, and
Mhm.
Omega were kind of the ones to really get this whole kind of Forbidden Door idea started and
Yeah.
getting the companies to work together. And then finally, I think with the pandemic, then everything was closed off. There was only certain wrestlers that could go back and forth between Japan and America, which started which basically made the opportunity for the Kenta and Moxley angle to happen on the New
Right.
Japan side, which also Moxley versus Omega that was happening in AEW. And then Omega reached out and was like, I got this crazy idea to bring Kenta to AEW. What do you think? Do you think New Japan will go for it? And I said, well, I think now is a great time to
It
try
was a
it.
big moment. It
It was
was
a
cool
really
as
cool
all
moment.
hell. It was a
It
really
was
cool moment.
really awesome. And worked out. I feel like it worked out when Kenta showed up on Dynamite. Nobody was expecting that, and
Yeah.
and this was still taping in Jacksonville,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
front of just a few hundred fans or whatever it
Yeah.
was. And but it was just a really really amazing moment, and that was kind of like what definitely started to get things going. I met with Tony, and Tony was really really cool, and he how excited he was about working with New Japan, how much he wanted to work with New Japan, how much of a fan he was of New Japan before AEW. So
Yeah.
it just kind of worked itself out, and then there was starting to gain a little trust on both sides, I think. What then we finally came up with the idea of like, I think I texted with Tony like, what if we just did like a super show, of some sort, where
Mhm.
I said the matches could be mixed, they could be, New Japan matches, AEW matches, whatever it is. Let's just put the idea out there. I would love to see if we can make something work. And then Tony was immediately like, I have like 8 matches I'm ready to do. Like he had so many ideas right off the bat. I was like, oh, this is great. This is great. I was like, yeah, this is awesome. And then I'm thinking like, I hope New Japan says yes. So
Yeah,
then
right?
I went back to New Japan. I told them about it. And all of a sudden it became a reality. Like things started happening behind the scenes where, we're talking about, well, how would it work? Who handles the production, da, 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 da. So going back and forth. So I just was going back and forth between, Chris Harrington and the New Japan office, between Tony and the New Japan office, and just going back and forth. And then, we were able to put this show together, and it was a crazy experience because New
Yeah.
Japan is such a live event company. AEW is obviously like a television company, so
Yeah.
two very different worlds. So like there we had some some scheduling conflicts, and then obviously like COVID, a lot people
Yeah.
COVID. Then we had injuries on top of that. So like definitely the original plan changed a bunch, but it was cool that both companies were willing to make it work and figure out how to make this thing work. And it was a huge success. I
Oh my
mean,
God,
one
it
of the
was
biggest
amazing.
pay-per-views of the year. So
Yeah, it was awesome. Okay, so for you to join Best Friends, there's obviously some deep history there with a few of
yes,
those fellows. But for
right.
you to be on, back into the wrestling scene of things with AEW.
Yeah, that was kind of the unexpected part. I think that after like the first time I showed up like with Kenta at when he showed up on Dynamite,
Hmm.
uh Tony was like, dude, I love Roppongi Vice. It's one of my favorite songs of all time. He's like, sometimes I play it after the shows, and then so I had to confirm with Trent, like, does Tony really like Roppongi Vice? Does he really play it after the shows? He's like, yeah, dude, he knows all the words. I was like, oh, that's cool. So then he was like,
That's so funny.
yeah, it was really cool. So then he's like, so he mentioned, he's like, I would love for you to come back to AEW sometime. And Trent was hurt at the time, but I would love for eventually we can do like a Roppongi Vice reunion in AEW. And that was kind of the stepping stones of working with Best Friends. And
Yeah.
then obviously, working with OC, working with Chuck
Yep.
and Chris. So it was, yeah, just like really, really cool, and just kind of got thrown into it. So then, like now I'm the guy who can I'll obviously become like a New Japan representative in AEW all the time, but also be a part of like an existing stable
Yeah.
angle at any point. Whenever they need an extra person, they can just throw me in there and plug me in,
You get to be that like Swiss Army knife player. What do you need?
Yes,
What do you
exactly.
need? Rocky's got the goods. Your time working with Gallows and Anderson. Let's talk about those fellows for a minute.
Do we need to? I feel like
I mean, I don't know. I think when you start talking about Gallows and Anderson, it's like, well, what stories can we tell? What do you
exactly.
say? Okay, so we don't have to get into details about too many things. But with Gallows and Anderson going back to WWE, Anderson having a title at New Japan, kind of keeping that door open. What is the deal? What's going
It's,
on?
it's been a very stressful situation for me.
Yeah, I bet. I
I
bet.
bet. So, yeah, obviously, when the guys started saying, talking about the, WWE had reached out to them, I, of course, started to get nervous because I knew that we had a bunch of dates, set and everything. And obviously, like you said, Anderson was the never open champion. So, I got worried and I said, you guys don't screw me over, please. Like I
Yeah.
was part of the
Yeah.
reason that you guys came back, and helped to obviously they left on, they left on good terms and everything,
Mhm.
but just to bring them back, was definitely a part of that. So, so we started we started talking about that, but then, finally he was like, okay, well, we're going to sign and, somebody's going to have to talk to WWE. So of course that means
Hence
me
you.
having to talk to WWE. And but I got on the line and obviously there was some confusion on when the dates that they were going to actually do. And there was that November 5th show that Anderson had already been announced for New Japan, but then
Mhm.
it was also the same time that the Saudi Arabia show was going on.
Uh,
So then there was going to be a conflict right there. So that's kind of
mm.
how it started. It started off real rocky, obviously, but they went and did Saudi. We figured it out. We got a new date, and then we just decided to turn it into a big angle because I
Yeah.
thought that was probably the best way to deal with it. Kind of some realism to it, and also there's hoping that everything was going to work out, but not really sure. So
Yeah.
finally he went and did this last show a couple days ago and successfully defended the title. So
Mhm.
now he's on, he'll be at the Tokyo Dome to face Tama Tonga, which is really exciting.
Yeah, huge.
Dude, this Tokyo Dome is going to be insane. We have, WWE wrestler and Karl Anderson. We have Kenny Omega, who's an AEW wrestler.
Mhm.
We've got Stardom wrestlers on the show. We've got New
Is there
Japan
anybody else that's
wrestlers.
showing up for that show that we're not sure about yet, or?
I've heard a lot of rumors, but I don't really. I cannot confirm nor deny at this
Okay.
moment. But
Okay. Interesting. Interesting.
fingers
Okay.
crossed that you never know what could happen.
You never know.
Surprises definitely will be some surprises at the Tokyo Dome.
What are the
Um,
odds that maybe one AJ Styles, the phenomenal one, were to make his way out to the ring with Karl Anderson?
a- Anything is
Silence.
possible, Renee. Anything is
You know
possible.
what? Wrestling's great. This is the shit that I love about wrestling. I love when there are legitimate big question marks. And as much as dirt sheets pick up things and there can be rumors swirling around, whatever, I love the surprises. I love that bit of magic and that mystery. So I will certainly be watching, as I'm sure many other people are going to be tuning in to see what exactly is going to go on at this show.
I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah.
It's also like just a stacked show. Will
Yeah.
Ospreay versus Kenny Omega
Oh
singles
my
for the first
God.
time. It's
Woo!
nuts. It's
Woo!
nuts. Jay White versus Okada. They're gonna do another chapter in their obviously their series, which has always been top notch. And
Yeah.
so yeah, and I'm curious to see if the Good Brothers will actually show up. You never know.
Yeah, get on that flight, boys. Let's
Please,
go. Get over
please,
there. Do it. Do it.
please.
Okay, so back to you as a professional wrestler. We kind of rattled off some of the accolades, some of the things you've been able to do. I feel like you are somebody that's very much so revered by your peers. Do you feel like you get your flowers as a wrestler?
That's a loaded question. Yes and no. Yes and no.
Mhm.
I think definitely by my peers, yes.
Yeah.
Which is obviously a huge part of it.
Hmm.
By fans, maybe not so much. I
Yeah.
think the fans, obviously, I'm not I haven't been on the biggest platforms, and I think that that's definitely a part of it. I've never been in WWE, or, and now spending some time in AEW, I'm definitely getting more accolades, I guess.
Yeah.
There's also a lot
Yeah.
of people always talking shit online, I see it. Hey, but,
Uh,
no, I definitely feel good that I definitely feel like, having accolades from my peers is more important
right.
sometimes than the
Yeah.
fans. So I feel like I'll be, yeah, one of those. If it was this with like acting, I'd be like one of those actors that
Who's like a good,
all
like,
like, I
trying to think
don't
like the
know.
good example for that. It's like Leonardo DiCaprio never getting his Oscar. The fuck?
Yeah,
Is that
okay. You
no?
want to
No?
compare me to Leo? Not really. Maybe somebody a little lower on the totem pole, though. But
Okay, okay. Well, I mean, I get where you're going with this. I just can't think
yeah.
of a name right now. I've had a
Neither-
cold. My brain's working at like I'm at half staff right now. It's not
I'm the
happening.
guy that the people see and be like, oh, that guy. I know his
Mm,
face, but they don't exactly know his name.
mm,
That
mm.
guy.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
that
Well,
guy. I'll be that guy. Supporting actor.
best supporting actor.
Yeah.
What is the deal with you being one of the most hated men in Mexico at one point?
Oh, I tried to start a riot in August.
What
I was
happened?
almost successful. Very close. But
What happened?
no, it was it was just fun. It was so it was the World Grand Prix for CMLL, which
Hmm.
is Mexico versus the world. So I represented the world, and yeah, right before the match even started, we started getting into a shoving match, and then all of a sudden, the next thing you know, is like 15,000 people on their feet, like screaming at me, and I kind of got ran off into the crowd, which was a bad idea because
Yeah,
then there
that's not
was
smart.
a lot of people started to swarm me, so I jumped back over. But it was yeah, it was a cool feeling to have that kind of heat, in such a like rabid fan base like Lucha Libre has,
Yeah.
and but it felt good. It felt good to be back on your toes and being a heel, which I love so much. I'm so tired of being a good guy. But it makes like wrestling easier if I'm a good guy because I'm doing backstage stuff. It seems so much easier than trying to be a heel. But it's fun to do that in Mexico and get
I feel
people
like
riled
everyone
up.
always says it's easier to be a heel than it is to be a good guy.
It's definitely easier to be heel, but I'm saying it's easier to be a babyface if I'm doing backstage stuff
Oh,
in New
gotcha.
Japan.
Of
Yeah.
course. Of course. Yeah, that's smart. Smart,
than
smart,
than
smart.
being a heel,
Yeah,
'Cause, people sometimes will take things the wrong way,
right.
obviously, and so it's easier to be an office person, I guess.
Babyface office guy.
Babyface office guy, yeah. It's much
You
easier.
you have some Degeneration Mexico stories? Is this a thing? Emilio's chiming in on this. This is Emilio, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, I got the awesome opportunity to work with Sean Waltman in Mexico in my time in AAA. And yeah, so his big idea was like, we're going to start a new group and it's going to be called Degeneration Mex.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So,
And
and so we came out to the music and everything. And I don't know if AAA ever got sued or not, but like we definitely came out to the music. We had pyro. We did jumping crotch chops. It was
you had
awesome.
to. You
So
had to. Did you have the glow sticks?
no, we
Ah,
didn't have glow
boo.
sticks,
Boo.
but we had like the cross X's. The
Damn.
fireworks, the
Yeah, yeah,
pyro. That
yeah.
we
That's
had that a
rad.
couple times. I don't know. It was pretty cool because I basically got to be, 15, 16 years old doing like pretending to be in DX in front of
Yeah.
like thousands of people.
Yeah.
So I loved it, every second of it. It was not a hit. It was not over at all, but it was an awesome experience to work with Sean because he's got one of the best minds ever. And I learned a ton working with him, like
Sweet
being a,
man.
a fire sweet man, being a
Yeah.
fiery baby face,
Hmm.
like just learning so much. So very thankful because he kind of definitely changed some of my opinions about wrestling a little bit, and
How
just
so?
like Well, like I never really put anything into a comeback. Just I always thought just a comeback was just like a comeback, right? But
Mhm.
like the only thing Sean ever wanted to do was just do the comeback. And then I started to realize like how important that was and like how that kind of sets the tone for the rest of the match. And like that
Mhm.
sometimes is the most important part of the match, you know, depending on
Yeah.
on where you are. And so then I started to just realize, okay, I have to have like a sweet comeback. So then so I put together a really awesome comeback, and then I became the comeback guy for like my team with me and
Yeah.
Trent
Uh-huh.
later, and also like even just like that little area of New Japan where it was like the Bucks and Red Dragon and Roppongi Vice and Time Splitters. Then like I was the comeback guy. Even if we did like a 4-way or whatever, they'd be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, give it to." Even though like all those guys are better athletes than me and more impressive, I just had the fire. I knew exactly what to do. I had the clotheslines. I had all this stuff.
Mhm.
So I just became the comeback guy, and then that was like a great compliment because I wouldn't have had that if it wasn't for Sean.
Hell yes. It's so nice to like when you're able to pick up tidbits from working with the guys that are like the greats. It's really awesome to be able to take some of those and just put them in your tool belt and get to work.
Exactly.
You have been around this business for some time. You've worked in many different promotions. You've been there and done that. You've got some stories, obviously. I would love for you to close this out with telling me some great Antonio Inoki stories.
Oh
What do
man.
you got? What do you got?
I think the greatest Antonio Inoki story I have is so it all started. I was on tour in Japan, and there was like a week between the tours. So it was like the beginning of the tour. It was like Super Junior, and then there was like a week off because New Japan was going to Italy for a week, and then the rest of the tour was going to resume. I wasn't supposed to be on this Italy tour at all, so I was just going to take the week off and stay at the dojo train. And I get a phone call like 2 nights before they leave to Italy, and it's just basically like me in the dojo, and then I don't know who it was, but some young lion rookie picks up the phone. It's like midnight, and then I could hear the phone ring downstairs, and I could then all of a sudden I hear boop 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 the guy walking up the stairs, and then banging on my door, and I'm like yeah, and he's like oh Mr. Inoki wants you to come to Roppongi right now for drinks, and I said oh okay. So the
Okay.
boss says you're gonna have drinks at midnight. You put on your clothes, you get
Yeah.
in a cab, go, right? So I get there and it's like just another place I didn't belong. I was there, like you were talking about, I was just there. I was a young man with adults, have no idea. So I walk into this smoky bar and I sit down, and then Antonio Inoki's like, "Do you drink whiskey?" I'm like, "Of course.
I do tonight.
I
Yep.
do
Oh, you
tonight. Never drank whiskey like this before."
Yeah.
So gives me, they give me a whiskey, and then he goes, "You smoke cigars, right?" And I'm like, "Yes." And he goes, and at this he goes, "You're Cuban, right? So you definitely smoke cigars."
Oh Lord.
I'm like, "Well, that's a gimmick. I'm actually Puerto Rican, and I've never been to Cuba. I was born in Los Angeles." So I just said yes, of course. And he hands me a cigar. I think it's the first time I've ever smoked a cigar. So I had no idea. So I'm just got like
Uh-oh.
this whiskey and the cigar in my
Oh
hand,
no.
just and definitely just don't belong there. I'm with all these elite people from all over in the Japanese business world and
Mm-hmm.
you know politics or whatever. And so I'm sitting there, and he's like, "Are you going to Italy? This is pretty cool that New Japan is doing a like this tour in Italy." And I was like, "No, I'm actually off the tour. I'm staying here." He's like, "What? How could one of our greatest wrestlers, in the company
Oh.
not go to Italy?" I was like, "Wow, this is incredible. I don't know what's going on in my life right now." And then he goes, "So whatever." We finish out the night. I go to bed. It's like late, and I wake up the next day, and the same guy comes up. The same young lion knocks on the door. He goes, "I need your passport. I have to drop it off at the office. They need to make some kind of visa for you to go to Italy."
Ah.
I'm like, "Oh, okay." So hand him my passport. He leaves. Now I'm booked for this Italy tour. So the first like 5 days, I have nothing to do because they weren't planning on me being there. So like there wasn't really like a spot for me on the cards. So I
Yeah.
just kind of like hung out for 5 days, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And I ate like Italian food, drank wine. It was amazing. So then finally, I think the last day they said, "Oh, we have a spot for you on the card. It's going to be you." I think it was like me and Ultimo Dragon against Liger and Tiger Mask. So it was like
Mhm.
this really cool, like, tag match with all these masked, these four masked wrestlers. And so I went to go and do a double stomp to Tiger Mask, and I like slipped off his back and tried to post, and then dislocated my shoulder
Oh
during the match.
shit. Shit.
So I get to the back, and the trainer's like looking at it. He's like, "Oh yeah, this is bad. This is definitely dislocated." So then he like put it back in place, and he's
Mm.
like, "Okay, put a sling on me." And this is the last night of the tour, so he's like, "You're definitely smoked for the rest of the tour. When you get back to Japan, the Super Junior is done for you." Now, mind you, I was supposed to win the Super Junior that year, and it was like a big deal. There was going to get this huge
No.
push. That's out the door. So we get back to the hotel, and they have this huge dinner for us, to close out the tour, just like a big thank you thing with the promoters. And so we're sitting there. It's a private dinner, but for some reason, there's like a little stage, like at
Oh.
the front of the room, and Mr. Inoki goes up there, and he goes, "Rocky, come here." I don't know why. So we're like in our first, it's Italy, so there's like, you get your first part of your meal, your second part of your meal, third part of your meal, and all that. So like we're in like the first or second one, and he says, "Come up," and he goes, "How's your shoulder feeling?" I'm like, "Oh, it's not good. It's not good." And he's like, "Oh, okay, well, take off the sling."
Oh
I'm
no.
like, "Okay." So I take off the sling, and then he goes, "Can you move it?" I'm like, "Not really." And he goes, "Okay." So then he proceeds to like rub his hands together, and like straight out of like Karate Kid, he just goes
Yeah.
and he starts like focusing on it, right? Like, and like he's like, "Do you feel like any tingling or it getting hot?" I'm like, "Yes," but I was getting hot because I'm watching everybody watch me while he's doing this, right? So I'm just getting so nervous so that I'm starting to like sweat for sure. I'm like, "Oh no. What am I supposed to do in this situation? What's going on?" Like, and everybody's watching me, and he's just like doing the zzz, and he's like, and he's like, so he does it for like, oh, I don't know, a minute or two. It felt like forever.
Yeah.
And then he goes, "Go ahead and move it around. Like, I think it should be better." And I'm looking at the trainer who's looking at me watching this whole thing. And all he does is going, "No, don't
Oh.
move it." He's like from his seat. So I just go with like everything I had, and I'm raising it like up to my shoulder, like right. And he goes, and I'm like, "Oh," and he goes, "Great. I'm so glad it's much better." And he goes, and then he just like points me to go sit down. So I could just go and sit in my seat. And then I was like, "What is going on?" And I think I remember like everybody was just watching, right? Like all the boys. And then I remember like a couple days later, like Jado or Gato or somebody being like, "Yeah, he tried to do that to me like 2 years ago, and I just completely no sold it."
Oh my
but
God, that's fantastic.
but yeah, but honestly though, that was a very fun kind of story that happened. But
Yeah.
yeah, Mr. Noki was really, really awesome to me. He gave me a bunch of opportunities, and it was such a pleasure
Mhm.
to be able to be around a legend like that.
Yeah.
And somebody definitely learned a lot. And very sad to see him pass this year.
Yeah.
That was a rough one. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Total legend. It's yeah, I mean, so cool to be able to spend time under a learning tree like that and just to develop like a friendship like that. It's really cool,
100%.
something to hold close, definitely. Well, Rocky, thank you so much for popping on here with me. You're an absolute gem of a human being. Go get those pups, give them little smooches, and hopefully I'll see you at TV soon. When are you going to be there next?
Probably after the new year. I got to go to Japan. I got to go
Yeah.
back to Mexico. And then yeah, probably sometime after that. But I got to go get my pups because they're getting baths today.
Oh shoot. Okay. Listen,
Big
it's the
bath day.
holidays. You got to have a clean dog, Scrub
Exactly.
them down. Scrub them down.
Exactly.
Well, listen, text me if anything goes down at Wrestle Kingdom that I need to know about, and just keep a finger on the
Like
pulse.
what? Like what?
I don't know, maybe there's someone's gonna be there. A woman, perhaps.
Oh, do you know something that I don't, Renee?
I just see things trending on Twitter. That's all I ever see. I
Okay,
just see
okay.
trends. I don't know. I'm trying to be a journalist, and this is the best I can do.
You're doing a great job.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right.
Hey, have a great holiday.
Thank you. You too. You
All right, I'll
too.
talk to you soon.
All right. Have a good one.